In this video, I will share my experience on how to implement a performance management process. The intent of this process is not only to assess the performance of the employees, but to make sure that employees achieve their goals. We will review what the performance management process is, the concept of goal alignment, the type of goals, the dependencies and impacts of the performance management process, the concept of ongoing feedback and coaching conversations, how to create individual development plans, and much more. Performance management is the ongoing process of communicating each individual's job responsibilities, priorities, performance expectations, and development planning. This to empower employees to perform to the best of their abilities and in alignment with the organization's overall goals. Yes, there could be many other definitions or concepts of the performance management process. However, this is the one that I like the best for now. Goal alignment is the process in which everyone is going to be aiming towards the same direction. Let's look at the picture in the bottom. You can see that there are two leaders who are not communicated, who probably have not understood which direction, in this case, the boat needs to go, and assume that the boat is the company. The company has a vision. The vision is where you want to be. That could also be based on the annual operating plan. So once you understand where the company wants to be, now we can focus on rowing or aiming or going towards the same direction. Again, the picture in the bottom doesn't depict correct goal alignment, again, because they're aiming or rowing towards different directions. The image at the top is a perfect example of how everyone is rowing towards the same direction. They know where they want to be. Everyone knows what's the direction. Therefore, everyone is rowing towards the same direction. Now, let's look at that from the company standpoint. Once the company has identified their organizational goals, the mission, the annual operating plan, that could be communicated to the rest of the employees so that all the employees in the organization understand where the company is going, what the company goals are, and therefore to set their goals that are in connection or that are going to support the organizational goals. This with the goal in mind that everyone is going to achieve their goals. Individuals will achieve their goals, which are connected to the organizational goals, which once the employees achieve their goals, they're going to be supporting the company to achieve the company's goals. In summary, goal alignment is when individuals, teams, segments, sectors, department goals contribute to and connect with the organization's goals. This to ensure that all employees work towards the same overarching objectives. Goal alignment is critical for the goal cascading process and when identifying and documenting individual goals. Let's look at this example. The company has a vision, which means where the company wants to be in the future. For the company to be able to be there in the future, the company needs to work on annual goals. Some companies call it the annual operating plan. Some companies call it the annual business plan. And it could be comprised of financial and non-financial goals. These company goals need to be aligned with the company vision because these company goals are going to be those small steps that need to be taken year over year to achieve that company vision. Once these company goals are documented, they need to be communicated to the rest of the organization. In this case, I'm going to pick the example of the engineering division. The leader of the engineering division needs to identify and document his or her goals that are going to be aligned to the company goals. And then this leader is going to communicate to the rest of the leaders of the different businesses that comprise the engineering division his or her individual goals. Like in this case, the leader of the electrical business is going to identify his or her goals that are going to be aligned and supporting the engineering division goals. Once these goals are identified and documented, they're going to be communicated to the rest of the team. Then each of the employees in the electrical business need to document their individual goals. It could be few goals between 3 to 5. Some companies prefer to have 10 goals. What is more important is that these individual goals must be aligned with the leader's individual goals. I prefer between 3 to 5 goals just to avoid that impact delusion of having many goals. Goal alignment helps creating and communicating a clear and compelling future direction and purpose, not only of the organization, but also of each of the employees. Goal alignment helps developing and executing a competitive strategy that it could be very well documented in the annual operating plan. Therefore, goal alignment helps driving for results. And as we've been seeing, it helps us aligning individual goals with the company's vision and goals. This is an example of how we can identify and document individual goals. The company has an annual EBITDA goal of $18 million. The division has an EBITDA goal of $7 million. Now we need to look at opportunities to reduce cost to be able to achieve earnings of $7 million for that specific division, or that are going to contribute to achieving that EBITDA goal. In this case, the goal that John Doe identified was to reduce scrap rate by 30% by retraining employees into specific quality processes and procedures to reduce the company cost by the end of March. Look at the price of these two screws. These screws are not cheap. And what is going to happen if the company doesn't have very well trained and qualified technicians installing these screws? The result is going to be that the technicians may damage these screws. And then the company needs to buy more and more screws, which is going to increase the cost of the operation. And the more the cost, the less the earnings. Therefore, by identifying, documenting, and executing this goal is going to help reducing the cost, which is going to result in more earnings, which is going to help achieving that specific division goal related to EBITDA, which in turn is going to support the overall company's EBITDA goal. This is another example of goal alignment and goal setting, but now in the HR function and specifically for the HR Information Systems Director. In this example, the company was using Excel spreadsheets for the compensation planning process, in which they recommend base salary increase and bonus payout recommendations. In this case, the leaders were spending a lot of times completing spreadsheets, sending by email, reviewing, and resending by email to the roll-up leaders for the review and approval of the base and bonus recommendations. In this case, the goal for the HRIS director is to automate the compensation planning process, and again, for 100% of the base and bonus planning activities by migrating from Excel spreadsheets and email to Workday by September 2026, so that the operations and sales teams can increase their focus on revenue generating activities. You might be wondering how this goal is going to impact the company's EBITDA goal. Well, think about this. How long it takes to submit a base salary increase and bonus planning recommendations using spreadsheets and email. And let's assume that a leader has 10 managers reporting and that leader has to manage 10 different spreadsheets to review them, consolidate them, put them together, and submit it to the roll-up leader versus having, like in this case, Workday performing that consolidation and roll-up activities for the leader. This way, such leaders can focus instead of aggregating, consolidating, and submitting by email the spreadsheets, they can focus that time on revenue generating activities. So instead of focusing on cost, they're focusing on income that is going to have a direct tie to the company earnings goals. This is a real case, a real life experience example in which I was helping this company that did have a performance management process in place, but they did not have the goal alignment concept embedded into this performance management process, and more specifically in the goal setting process. The goals that each and every employee needed to have documented in their goal setting document or the goal scorecard was one of them, know where your job description is located. Another goal, know who your supervisor is. And again, sometimes companies may have the performance management process in place, which is good. At least they have something in place. But I think they can enhance it if they implement this concept, goal aligned. And again, the whole intent is to make sure that every single employee is gearing, aiming towards the same direction to which the company is aiming, so that everyone is working through a system which its ultimate goal is helping the company achieving its goals. Needless to say, if the company achieves its goals, the company is going to continue doing business and the company is going to maybe continue offering jobs. The approach that is recommended when identifying and documenting goals is the SMART approach. Each of these letters in the SMART acronym has a meaning. The S for specific, for the goal to be clear, measurable, that you can use criteria or metrics to measure its progress, actionable, that is realistic and that you can execute it, relevant, because it needs to be important, must matter to the manager, the team, the company, so that it receives support, and that is time-based, that you can have a time frame to complete it. In the case of a goal in which We needed to reduce the scrap rate because of those very expensive screws. You can see that the goal is very specific to reduce scrap rate. It's measurable because you need to reduce it by 30%. It's actionable and you can execute on this goal because you can retrain employees in specific processes. It's relevant, and again, it's important to the company because it's going to reduce company cost, and you can have a specific completion date, which is this goal is time-based because you should complete it by the end of March. In the case of the HRIS goal, it is specific because it's going to automate a process. It's measurable because 100% of the process needs to be automated, the base and bonus planning activities. It's actionable because it's going to migrate from spreadsheets and emails to Workday. It's relevant, meaning that it is important for the business because it's going to increase the focus on revenue generating activities. And it's time-based because the completion date should be by September of that year. The type of goals that you can include are hard goals and the soft goals. The hard goals help an organization to get on the same page and work towards specific achievements. This is the goal alignment. Again, based on the SMART approach, they're specific and measurable. They're defined clear and quantifiable objectives. And some of the examples are increase operating income by 20% versus previous year, reduce employee turnover by 10% within the next year, and like the example of the screws that I showed you before. The soft goals help the organization fostering a positive and productive environment. You can relate them to culture, to behaviors, to competencies. They're broad and qualitative. They're often focused on qualitative aspects. And for example, our behaviors such as, or values such as improved teamwork, recognize and correct potential hazards, personal development, such as taking training to develop new skills or develop new traits, and also related to behaviors, values, competencies to impact innovation. The performance management process has different impacts and ramifications. For example, in the case of culture, you can include soft goals, which are going to help driving the culture of the organization. You're going to assess how well the employees demonstrate the company's core values, for example, or the competencies related to the core values. It has an impact on the merit increase and the incentive payout because you can differentiate salary increases and incentive payout recommendations based on the individual performance. The better the performance, the higher, for example, the merit increase or the bonus payout recommendation. For training, you can identify the needs to help employees achieve their hard or the soft goals. In the case of individual development, to create tailored individual development plans focus on current and future performance expectations. For succession planning, it helps documenting the performance and identifying high-performing employees who can advance as leaders or become new leaders. And also for recognition, you can include a category in your recognition program to nominate employees of the month or the quarter for demonstrating above average values, which is going to impact culture and drive culture, or for those employees who have demonstrated above average performance for specific goals, soft goals, hard goals, and have a direct impact on the company core values. Another important feature that must be embedded into the performance management process is the ongoing feedback and coaching conversations. It's something that I most of the time refer to it as conversations set for success. It means that it's not only important to set and document individual goals, but it's more important to make sure that employees achieve their goals. Think about this. What would happen if several employees do not achieve some of the goals? And then those goals are linked and aligned with the company goals. It means that the whole system is going to fail. What are these ongoing feedback and coaching conversations? They are constructive feedback focused on achieving individual and company goals. They need to happen on an ongoing basis, as needed also when the performance derails, when it is identified that goals are not going to be met. These conversations could happen immediately right after that derailment is identified, or during the one-on-one meetings, or during a monthly individual one-on-one session. But again, don't wait until the end of the year just to communicate to the employee you didn't meet your goal. No, this conversation needs to happen right after it is identified that the performance is derailing, that that specific goal might not be achieved. Why? Because managers and supervisors have to act as coaches and mentors for the employees so that these employees can reach individual goals. They can perform successfully and, more important, correct those performance deficiencies. How? We need to pay a lot of attention in this case. It must be constructive feedback, positive and also negative, focusing on personal development, individual goals, job requirements, skills, and competencies, maybe. And if performance is not derailing, at least to recognize all the accomplishments and to motivate to continue that strong performance. The individual development plan is a strategy that I always recommend to include into the performance management process. It is a tool in which we're going to document the roadmap for an employee's career growth. We're going to outline the employee's career goals and the steps that need to be taken to achieve such career goals. Again, I believe it should be a component of the performance management process. And because in the performance management process, we have the ongoing coaching conversations. We should also create, during those coaching conversations or separate conversations, we should create these individual development plans, review them, and update them throughout the year. The goals of this individual development plan are to identify the development opportunities related to the current and future capability needs, to build a company's bench strength, and more important, to increase employees' engagement. The different steps that I typically follow when documenting individual development plans is, again, related to the performance management process. What are the company goals? We need to identify the necessary skills, knowledge, behaviors, competencies, which are going to support the companies and the business goals. Business referring probably to a business segment, a function like the HR function, the finance function, and align the employee's development plan with the company's and your group or business function or sector needs and goals. Then we also need to understand the employee's interest. What is the employee's current career situation, the future's aspirations, and how they think that they can accomplish them. We need to work on the individual skills to identify each employee's talents, strengths, and development opportunities, including the values. We need to put together the action plan, which is the individual development plan, in which we're going to identify the activities, development, learning opportunities, document them, and to create a plan. This plan is to identify the activities that need to happen to say develop new skills to improve how the employee demonstrates some behaviors, to acquire knowledge for new capabilities. For different purposes, we can create this individual development plan. And more important, the last step is to act on the plan. Similar to the performance management process, it's not only about setting goals and wait until the end of a year to see how well the employee perform against such goals. No, similar in this case, the individual development plan, we need to act on them. We need to take action on an ongoing basis to make sure that this plan is accomplished. Therefore, the employee and the supervisor follow up on the plan, assume ownership, and execute on the plan. Some thoughts about the performance management process. Automate the process. If you have the luxury, your company already has the luxury of having an HR information system, configure it in such a way so that you can automate the process. If you don't have an HRIS system, well, use paper, Excel, Word documents, but at least have a performance management process in place, making sure that you follow the goal alignment process. Also, this is not an HR process or project. Most of the time, business leaders look at the performance management process as another HR box that they need to check or another HR process that they need to check. No, this is a business tool that is going to help them either their segment, function, business achieve their goals. Now, maybe the first time that you implement goal alignment and goal cascading is not going to be perfect, but eventually, year over year, and as the time progresses, this process of goal cascading and goal alignment is going to be mastered by all participants. But at the end of the day, you need to take the first step, try it, and implement goal cascading and goal alignment process. Always make sure that the goals are reviewed and approved by the roll-up manager or supervisor. Again, this is part of ensuring that the correct goal alignment is happening. Also, you may want to face this approach by starting with salaried employees in year 1 or 2 so that they master the goal cascading and goal alignment process. And maybe you want to move on a second phase, having hourly employees adopting this goal cascading process. Now, keep in mind, some companies do not set individual goals for hourly employees, others do. There's no one size fits all. It all depends on each of the company's strategy. Some companies only evaluate hourly employees' performance based on skills or values or just competencies. But again, some companies they just don't set individual goals for hourly employees. And also allow self reviews. You want to have a two-way conversation in which employees are going to assess their own performance and then they're going to meet with their manager or leader to have this conversation about how the leader assess the employee's performance, where you can find differences and where you can align. This is an example of the different steps that comprise the performance management process, and assuming that this company has a January-December fiscal year, in which at the end of a year, towards the end of a year, the company is in the budget and business planning season. During this season, they document the next year business goals, and the leadership team, typically referred as the C-suite or executive team, set the individual goals. Then they communicate the business and leadership goals to all the employees. Very important. Communicate goals before the end of the year. I have seen companies that they start their fiscal and performance year in January, and it is March or February, and they have not even communicated the business goals for the year. They have not finished identifying those company goals. They probably have some idea of what is going to be the operating plan from the financial standpoint, but it's really important that these business goals, organization goals, are communicated before the year begins, before the previous year ends. And also during this season of the end of a year, you could start this previous year's individual performance reviews. Come in January and maybe February at the latest, the company should have completed the previous year performance reviews. And all individual goals are set and documented, and coaching feedback has started already. In Q2, maybe you want to start documenting individual development plans and again continue with those ongoing coaching conversations and performance feedback as needed. Some companies tend to only say, we don't want to have ongoing coaching conversations. We only want to have a mid-year review and a year-end review. If this works, fine. But again, if performance derails, it needs to be addressed immediately and don't wait for a mid-year review conversation or a year-end review conversation. Tackle that performance derailment immediately. Q3, execute on individual development plans. And again, continue having those ongoing coaching conversations as needed. And then start again. Start the year-end performance reviews and work on next year business planning. Creating this performance management strategy and implementing it and ensuring that there's goal alignment, that there are ongoing coaching conversations, that individual development plans are going to be created. It's great, it's really important, but it's also important to educate and train managers to make sure that they understand and master the performance management strategy. They are the ones who need to understand how to use this as a business tool, not only as another HR process. It's a business tool that is going to help their businesses achieving their goals. And this is an example of the rollout process in which HR is going to provide the communication and the training and the calendar for rolling out the performance management process. HR is going to develop training materials so that managers can get trained on goal setting, how to conduct performance appraisal, and how to communicate the performance management process to the rest of their businesses. Also, HR provides just-in-time training for key elements of the cycle, as we saw the previous the example of the performance management cycle on the previous page. The senior leadership team members, and this is typically referred as the C-suite, the executive team, is going to document the business goals and then their own corresponding individual goals and cascade them. They are also going to communicate the commitment and rollout plan to their teams. And they can always have the corresponding HR business partner assisting them in this communication and rollout activity. It could be during staff meetings or during managers one-on-ones, again, to communicate this commitment to implement or enhance the performance management process. Leaders and managers will communicate and roll out this process to their teams, set the business, departments, sector, depending on the structure of the organization, goals, and the individual goals and cascade them. Individual goals is, in this case, refers to the leader or the manager individual goals so that they document them, communicate them, and cascade them. And then they're going to monitor individual performance against goals or competencies or values throughout the year. And at the end of the year, they're going to conduct the performance evaluation. And they're going to be responsible. I mean, all leaders, including middle management leaders, directors, leaders, executive team, C-suite, they all are responsible for making sure that everyone achieves their individual goals. And in the event of a performance derailment, they need to have that coaching conversation to make sure that performance is corrected and that goals are achieved. Then, after the leaders and the managers has set the department and their own individual goals and cascade them and communicate it to their teams, the rest of the employees are going to identify and document the individual goals. And again, leaders and managers are going to review and approve them just to make sure that the goal alignment process is being followed. The next steps would be, as we saw on the cycle, performance management cycle, is to conduct those ongoing coaching conversations to address performance issues or to recognize good performance. I'm trying to share my real time, real life experience and knowledge with you through these videos. I know sometimes I don't go deep dive into details, but at least I try to provide as much guidance as possible so that you can take this video as an instruction manual to design and implement a process. But in the case that you have any questions or you need some help with implementing a performance management process or any other HR strategy, feel free to reach me by phone or by email and look at my website. You can find so many resources that probably can help you with designing and implementing some HR strategies and processes. Thank you.